In this video, I'll be showing you how to make your own grain spawn using rye grain. You should expect the grain to expand roughly 3 times its size when dry once it's cooked. So if you're doing 3 jars of grain, you would want to basically start with just 1 jar dry for 3 jars. I'm doing 4, so I'm going to do 1 in about a quarter or a third. It doesn't really matter what rye you choose to use, but this is what I'm using if you'd like to know. Go ahead and just add that to your pot, whatever you're going to be boiling it in. It doesn't have to be the pressure cooker. And since I'm doing 4 jars, I'm going to measure out just a little bit more. And go ahead and dump that in too. There's 2 methods of preparing grains. One is to soak overnight and then boil briefly. Another is to just directly boil for an hour, and even Paul Stamets in his book says neither method, in his opinion, merits endorsement over the other. Back to the task at hand. I got a little bit too much there. Put a little bit back. Yeah, it's a little closer. I still probably could have done a little bit less. Dump it in. And now we'll go ahead and add some water. Remember, it's going to grow 3 times its dry size, so it may take quite a bit of water. Always a good idea to take a good look at your grains before you cook them so you can see how they change during cooking. I typically will just use the saute function from here. It only does 30 minutes at a time, but that's fine. That's a good time for you to check and see if you should keep cooking it, or if you're starting to have grains explode, expand, pop, whatever, which is a good sign that you're getting overcooked grains. You can cover it loosely with the lid. You don't want to seal it. We're not trying to pressure cook anything, so just make sure you leave it loose so it can vent. While that's warming up, it's also a great time to check that you've got all your parts for the lids and everything. Check your seals, make sure the stuffing still fits snug and all of that. You can also start to figure out what you're going to use to drain or strain the water off of this once it is fully cooked. Make sure you have enough capacity to do so also. I really like to use the basket used for cooking Thai sticky rice. It's got a huge capacity, very easy to toss the grains around once they're drying. And whatever else you can think of to get done while you're waiting for this to heat up. I changed some settings on this one just to see if I could use something that would let me set a 1-hour timer. It didn't quite work out. I also tried using a different lid, something that would seal better. It works fine for when it's warming up, but if you leave it on there, it's going to boil over just like with pasta once it starts boiling. This was not a good setting. Anything that is trying to use a pressure function, don't use that. The timer will never actually start. Since the Instant Pot does heat very aggressively, it's a good idea to stir these while preheating. Once it's boiling, good idea to check the grains regularly. You can start to see if they're overexpanding or overcooked, or you start seeing them kind of burst like you can in my example here. It's a good sign that you've kind of overcooked them, so I needed to drain these very quickly. Even once you remove them from the heat, they're just going to hold so much heat that they'll just naturally continue to cook a little longer too. So not only just getting it off the heat, but get the water away from it and shake it around, spread it out. It's not beyond saving at this point, but it's not ideal either. I also like using the sticky rice basket because I can do it anywhere. I don't have to go and use sink space to let these drain for an hour. So I'll first just go ahead and dump this into there. Before I start getting the grains out, I'm going to go and dump out the boiling hot water. Again, we're trying to get the heat away from the grains at this point. Dumping the water out now will also make sure that the water level in that little bucket doesn't get high enough to keep some of the grains soaking while they're supposed to be draining. Here you can see how easy it is using this basket to toss the grains around, shake them up, bring what's on the bottom to the top. I find this very useful, especially right before putting them into the jars. If you're just letting it gravity drain, naturally most of the moisture is going to be at the bottom. But back to the immediate issue, we want to spread these out into like a funnel shape, just like the basket, so they can cool off. If you're using a colander, try and use a few colanders, maybe whatever you can do to kind of spread them out thinly so that they can cool off quickly. That'll be a great help at this point if they're a little overcooked. Since it's been at least an hour, you can go ahead and start getting ready to sterilize the jars. Make sure your sealing surface for your pot and lid are clean and not have any berries stuck to them, because that'll make an issue. You won't get a good pressure seal. Drop something in the pot to keep the jars separated from the heating element. They're just sitting above the water basically once you've got this all prepared and ready to go. We'll take a look and see. You can see I basically have it like just right underneath the level that this, maybe it's called a trivet, is sitting at. Now I toss the grains a little bit more, make sure that there's as even moisture distribution as possible, because like I said, the moisture will mostly settle to the bottom, dry will be on the top. And now you can go ahead and start filling jars. Your target fill level is about 2/3 full. I have a bad habit of always just preparing a little bit more than I need to, so I'm more on the 3/4 side. I can't always shake my jars, but that's not necessarily an issue either. You can always break it up later on if it ends up getting too consolidated. So we'll just keep filling them up. I try and go like fill each one half full, then keep adding a little bit more. Just spreads it out nice and even. Shake the last bits into whichever jar needs just a little bit more. At this point you can put the lids on, make sure they're nice and tight, because after this they should be sterilized and we won't be opening them for several weeks. Load the jars into your pressure cooker. Try and get them as centered as possible. I have the larger size of the Instant Pot and it barely fits 4-quart jars. And even though they fit, it still takes a little finagling to get the lid to actually seat and seal. You need to leave a gap in between the jars right where the actual valves are going to be so that you have that space to get it to drop and rotate and seal. Now simply set it to the high pressure setting for at least an hour and 30 minutes. You can go a little longer or a little shorter, whichever you prefer. We will be leaving this to cool overnight, so make sure that you turn off the keep warm setting, or you'll wake up in the morning and your jars will still be keeping warm and you'll still have to wait for them to cool. Keep an eye on your Instant Pot, make sure, or whatever pressure cooker, make sure that it actually seals once you need it to. Even once that valve pops, make sure you check all the way around the gasket and don't hear any hissing at all. And just let it sit overnight to cool so that they'll be ready for inoculation in the morning. I'll show you how to do an inoculation real quick with just 4 jars. If you need a more detailed video, check my other videos in my mushroom growing playlist. First we need to shake up this spore syringe, so we're going to try this impact massager someone mentioned in the comments the other day. And the results are absolutely amazing. This will always be how I shake up these from now on. I've never seen it so perfectly, all clumps gone, even shaking for 10 to 15 minutes or more. Since that's ready to go, we're going to quickly sterilize the area we're working in, including the top of the pressure cooker, with some 70% isopropyl rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle. Make sure you clearly label your spray bottle so that someone doesn't try misting plants with rubbing alcohol somewhere in the future. Just sterilize everything you're going to be handling for this, even though you're using self-healing injection ports, which is a really safe method to use. You never know when the slightest bit of bacteria might get by and somehow get into this, so I just sterilize everything, including my arms. I'll even throw on a face mask and sometimes wear a hat too, but I'm just going with the mask, gloves, and fully sterilized everything this time. Go ahead and pop the pressure cooker open, and there's your jars. You can spray them a little bit too if you like. Clean your hands again. Now you can go ahead and put the needle onto your spore syringe too. You can use just an alcohol wipe to sterilize your syringe if you want, or alcohol wipe and a lighter. I prefer just using a lighter. I haven't had any issues with that so far. Make sure you get it red hot and probably aim for like close to a minute if you can. Pick a jar and just work the needle in gently. You don't want to be too aggressive with it or you might damage your silicone on there. I don't put a whole lot, probably just a few milliliters really, and that's worked well enough. You can, if you want to add a little bit more, that might help colonize them a little faster. I mean, it's supposed to help them colonize much faster, but I just try and get the most out of these liquid cultures as I can. This is at least the second round that I've done from this one syringe. If you're all finished with that, go ahead and safely put your cap back on your needle, remove the needle, and place the sealed cap back onto the syringe. And I like to just use a little bit of tape and attach the needle to the syringe that I used, so it's, you know, the same spores each time. And at a minimum, mark which strain has gone into each jar, so you don't forget that part. A date could also be useful if you have enough jars in rotation, I suppose. I only have a few batches, so generally just the strain is enough for me. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions that I didn't cover or address in this video, feel free to let me know in the comments and I'll try to give you the best answer I can. Thanks again.